Untuk salam sejahtera, selamat datang. Saya ucapkan kepada seluruh rekan-rekan sekalian, Bapak Ibu yang pada malam hari ini telah hadir dalam acara sharing session Bangun Energi. Kita ketemu lagi dalam acara sharing session Bangun Energi. Untuk tema kali ini adalah Unconventional Exploration for Unconventional Resources, Natural Resources. Yang nanti akan dibawakan oleh Mr. George Barber. Saya juga ucapkan selamat datang, welcome to Mr. George Barber dari Terra Energi yang akan menjadi speaker pembicara dalam sesi diskusi kita malam hari ini. Kemudian sebelum sesi presentasi yang akan disampaikan oleh Mr. George Barber, saya akan sampaikan dulu kepada partisipan mengenai ground rules untuk webinar sharing session Bangun Energi kali ini. Ini untuk memperlancar acara. Untuk yang pertama, dimohon para peserta atau partisipan menggunakan username dengan nama asli atau bukan nama alias sehingga tim dari BE bisa mudah untuk merecognize-nya. Kemudian nomor 2, webinar ini dibagi menjadi 2 sesi, yaitu sesi pemaparan materi dan sesi tanya jawab. Jadi nanti mungkin akan disampaikan sesi pemaparan atau presentasi oleh Mr. George Barber sekitar 1 jam. Dan kemudian dilanjutkan dengan diskusi tanya jawab 1 jam. Nah, selama pemaparan materi, dimohon bagi yang tidak bertanya atau tidak berkepentingan untuk mematikan mic-nya, supaya tidak mengganggu jalannya webinar. Nah, untuk kemudian jika ada pertanyaan, para peserta dapat menggunakan fitur raise hand yang nantinya akan dipanggil oleh moderator sesuai dengan urutan pada sesi tanya jawab, ataupun dapat menggunakan fitur chat yang ada di Zoom ini. Kemudian pada sesi Q&A, para peserta diharapkan bertanya sesuai dengan tema sharing yang sedang berlangsung. Jika pertanyaan di luar tema, mungkin nanti akan moderator dan tim akan mengingatkan untuk bisa bertanya pada sesi yang lain sesuai dengan tema sharing, ataupun bisa dilanjutkan diskusinya di luar dari presentasi ataupun sharing session saat ini. Nah, selama bertanya dimohon untuk menggunakan bahasa yang sopan dan hindari menggunakan kalimat yang memicu sara politik ataupun debat yang tidak baik ya. Nah, kemudian untuk yang terakhir ya, selamat menikmati jalannya sharing. Semoga ilmu yang didapatkan bisa bermanfaat. Sebelum kita mulai sesi presentation dari Mr. George Barber, saya akan sampaikan terlebih dahulu mengenai profil dari pembicara kita. I will introduce about our speaker, Mr. George Barber, from Terra Energi and Resource Technology, consultant for Southeast Asia, and now he's a country manager in Indonesia. Mr. George has a work experience as a consultant for representative for Terra Energi and Resource Technology, and then International Energy Solution Partner, Independent Consultant, Land and Marine Survey Indonesia, PT Surpindo Perdana Indonesia, and the last in the Royal Navy for about 24 years. That's a very long time. Okay, now George is experienced in innovative exploration for all natural resources, which include oil and gas, minerals, geothermal, water, coal bed methane, complex geology. George is the country manager and consultant for Terra Energi and Resource Technology, TERT'S, in Indonesia, and business development in various countries to the world. Although mainly in the Southeast Asia, George has lived and worked in Indonesia for the past 27 years, having had a successful career in the Royal Navy and private sector as a hydrographic surveyor and exploration consultant. Mr. George has developed extensive expertise in project management, supervision, logistics, procurement, and training in the natural resource sector in Indonesia. He has particular expertise in natural resource development for minerals, oil, gas, and geothermal. He has also established and operates successful companies and partnerships in Indonesia with both Indonesian and international companies. He is a strong advocate for the development of Indonesia natural resource. His other area of interest are maritime affairs, safety at sea, geology, and science, and also training. Okay, now next session is we go to the main presentation from Mr. George Barber. So Mr. George Barber, for the time, please, is about 1 hour, maybe until 8:10 p.m. Okay. Yeah. Mr. George Barber, please. Ya, teman-teman, untuk partisipan diharap dapat mengikuti sharing session ini dan diharap untuk menyimak sehingga nanti jika ada diskusi dan pertanyaan dapat disampaikan dan diskusi lebih aktif di sesi selanjutnya. Oke, Mr. George, please. Mr. George, your
Mas
mic.
Ricky.
Ya.
Mr. George itu di set dulu jadi co-host.
Okay. Let's put the video up. I'm going to share the screen now.
Share screen-nya.
Can you see the screen?
Screen-nya
Not yet.
Pak George bisa di-share?
Not yet, Mas.
Hey, can you see the screen?
We cannot see.
You cannot see, Pak George?
I've unmuted it. I've shared the screen. Are you allowing me to share? Can you see now?
Yep.
Share?
Yep, already.
Can you see the screen?
Yep, already, sir.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we can get rid of these. Okay. Presentation for unconventional exploration. And really, we're talking about geothermal tonight, or Mother Nature's natural resources. Salamat Malam. Who said the following? It's not the process that matters. The main thing is the result. Well, your president said this at his inauguration speech in October 2019. And this is quite an important sentence to grasp. Bangun Energy, the value of Bangun Energy Foundation. Agenda. There is no agenda. It's a mystery, just like this picture of the subsurface, which is a blur. Exploration is a mystery. Energi, subsurface specialists. We've been in business for 35 years or more in development, water, geothermal, oil and gas, minerals, coal bed, methane, complex geology, fractures, faults, anticlines, etc. Indonesia has complex geology, a lot of volcanics. With scores of projects worldwide, high success rate, been 35 years in development, and in the last 16 years, over 200 projects have been done in 20 different countries. Now, I would like you to look at this video while I talk for the next 3 to 4 minutes. And this is very important. It's all about spectral density, which is lithology that is taken from the surface by satellites, processed and connected to the subsurface, where the surface density manifestation came from. Generation young working, if they are the future, the same as the older people were the future. Indeed, it is the older people that invented many of the things today younger people accept as normal. Smartphones have not always been a part of our lives, the same as the internet and computers. People used to write letters with ink pens, then typewriters came in, but they did not have such things as spell checks. But if we look at geology, has it changed in the past 6 decades? You are probably being taught what your instructors were taught. Geology is geology, yes. We need to improve more in a way we carry out exploration based on geology. The same exploration methods are being used today as they have since the 1960s. Before many of you were born, I expect, with some improvement. You will see what I mean during the presentation. The younger generation have a huge role to play in exploration. But the older generation need to accept new ideas. They need to listen to the younger generation, who are mostly smarter with computers, smartphones, as this is what they have been brought up with. The older generation need to accept what is being done today is high risk. They accept it as normal. And there are other ideas. Take what we are going to look at today. None of what is being done was created overnight. Indeed, it started development 35 years ago, but it could only be developed by the use of satellites and computers, which are continually improving. These improvements are being made by the younger generation, as the inventors have sowed the seed and retired, or are indeed no longer on this planet. They are looking down and are asking, are my ideas that are proven being accepted by the older people? Are the younger people being given a chance by the older people to improve exploration? And the answer is that the younger people are not being given the opportunity they deserve. Technology for exploration will allow the whole of Indonesia to be explored, onshore and offshore, where today 60 to 80% of Indonesia is unexplorable due to costs, complex geology, volcanics, which is geology. If you think about it, technology for exploration has to be based on something. Geology is geology after all. With technology, you are trying to understand the geology beneath the surface. Therefore, technology is based on geology, mathematics, supercomputers, and super people. And this is a concern, as many people are starting to rely on the results of what the computers produce, whilst not understanding if this could be wrong, whilst not understanding basic geology. So you need to know the basics, but you also need to accept new ideas, the same as you accept your second, or in some cases your first brain. Yes, the so-called smartphone. It is a sad thought. Exploration is not happening as it should due to cost and risk, which basically means loss of money. Today's excuse that the cost of oil is too low to explore, but in my view, is you should always be exploring. You are ready to exploit with minimum damage to the environment when the cost of oil increases, not start to explore as and when you come to exploit. People will say the cost of oil is too low. It's a never-ending circle. At the end of the day, if the industry does not accept technology that is different, that is proven, then people, older and younger, will not be working as there is no exploration happening. Why is Indonesia importing 60 to 50% of its daily requirement for oil when it has 68 basins that have not been explored until now? When it has mature basins that could be like new basins if the petroleum systems were fully understood. Older people need to move over. Use your experience. Let the younger people learn about new ideas that are based on geology and use technology as we do for so many things in our lives. Okay, let's move on. Technology to connect the surface of the earth is based on density, the video you have just been watching. That can be seen from spectral data collected by satellites. You have microseismic emissions beneath your feet, which have traveled through the subsurface to the surface over geological time. Okay, food for thought. Who likes Padang food? Everybody likes Padang. Food for thought. Is Indonesia rich in natural resources? Everybody will say yes. But where are they? We think we know where it is, but we do not know where it is. As an Australian consultant said to me when we was looking for gold in Sumbawa, they thought they knew, but they did not. Who said the following? If it could have been found, it would have been found by now. I said that. Can an Indonesian that is trained in Indonesia work in any other country? Of course they can. What does COVID-19 have in common with geology? We both have no borders. COVID is spread around the world. Geology has no borders. Oil in Russia is oil in Indonesia. Can exploration drilling technology that works in other countries work in Indonesia? Of course it can. There is no reason it cannot. Technology is not affected by COVID-19. Only humans are. And Indonesia needs to accept technology. People used to think that the world was flat. Some people still do. And you could have been burnt alive for thinking like that. Contrary to belief, the Earth is round and the Earth's surface is connected to the subsurface. Connective dissonance. What does it mean? It means when you challenge something that they understand and hold most closely. Mental conflict that occurs when beliefs or assumptions are contradicted by new information. Open minds, the willingness to learn and to accept not so new ideas is important. Exploration industry status. Exploration facts. 3G surveys have been carried out around the world for more than 5 decades. Seismic MT was accepted into the industry in the 1960s. They're still our main tools of exploration. 60 to 80% of Indonesia is unexplorable with traditional exploration tools. It's true. It's also true that the medical industry is far more advanced than the exploration industry. If we look here on the left, 1957, the first spotlight, the first satellite was launched. This is our first mobile phone in 1973. It was heavy. But now we look at Landsat 9, which is due to be launched later this year or early next year. We look at future smartphones. They are all improving, but the exploration industry is not. We are all clue hunters. We are all looking for clues, trying to resolve the hidden mysteries of the subsurface. And exploration is riddled with holes and educated, interpretive guesswork. My glasses, I can't see without my glasses. And this is like exploration. Natural resource exploration is very often blind. Geophysics, LIDAR, seismic, tomography, MT, are they enough for geothermal, unconventional exploration? And the answer is, no, they are not. We have clues, which we can see visually for geothermal, hot springs, manifestations. And that's how Indonesia looks for geothermal, surface manifestations. When we look for mineralized gold, oil seeps, water, rocks and trees, we have indications. We also have the mud flow in Lapindo. We have a good indication. And when we see our rivers, we can see good indication of garbage flow. But where did it come from? We need to know where the source of the resource is. We have the smiling Indonesian geologists and geoscientists. We have our rock hammer. We have people going around with a magic machine looking for metals. We have aeroplanes, we have drones, and we have satellites. They are all part of the exploration tools. Satellite or LiDAR? Can you tell the difference here? Which is satellite, which is LiDAR? On the left is LiDAR, on the right is satellite. The only difference is a 0.15 of a meter in height. In X and Y, there is no difference. In exploration, are we worried about 0.15 of a meter? No, we are not. They all collect data. That's what those tools do. They are all trying to answer one question only. Where is the natural resource? However, none of these methods can provide the complete answer. They all have limitations. You do not connect the surface to the subsurface, where the source of the resource is. Drilling is required to answer many of the questions. Exploration is a risk. It is gambling, normally with somebody else's money. Geothermal exploration. Today, unfortunately, in geothermal exploration, the data collected does not give you the ability to say where the reservoir is in the subsurface accurately. The presence of a surface manifestation does not mean that you have a commercially viable geothermal system. Neither does it mean that a geothermal reservoir is beneath the surface manifestation. There are many risk factors that need to be considered prior to drilling a successful well, such as a temperature gradient, heat source, migration, reservoir extent, permeability, structures, faults, etc. Risk factors need to be reduced in order that you can drill a successful prospect with the minimum number of wells, as well as to define the extent of the reservoir to estimate the potential electrical output even before you get an exploration license. This is a well-known chart which is published. This was issued in 2012. And the root of the problem with exploration for geothermal, coal plants are a lot cheaper to develop. But the industry standard is high risk and cost for 5 years. It takes the industry in Indonesia 7 to 15 years before a geothermal station comes on stream. The technology allows for lower risk with a shorter time frame to production. You can reduce it by at least 3 years in the exploration stage. You lower the number of wells, means lower costs and exposure to investors. Indonesia is trying to attract investment. Nobody is interested, the risk is too high. We look at this chart, which was re-edited in 2012 by Rixes. There's no difference to the chart, but our curve still fits nicely. We need to reduce the risk and cost in preliminary survey. New exploration ideas. Well, not so new ideas. Technology, whose purpose is to discover new natural resources and to develop mature resources by connecting the open source data to the subsurface. The past trial and error, meaning mapping, drilling, has enabled the empirical connection to understand the lithology of any given area to allow the whole of Indonesia to be explored. There is a geothermal revolution happening. There are new drilling rigs that are coming on stream that can drill extremely quickly and efficiently and low cost. There are new or repetitive pulsed electric drill or sonic drilling for shallow reservoirs. These groundbreaking technologies could improve the global drilling industry. It's happening, like it or not. The knowledge, exploration technology, the knowledge of the reservoir extent, temperature, gradient, isothermal contours, inferred permeability prior to any drilling any well is very important and cannot be achieved by today's methods of exploration. Questions: why apply for a license? Why construct infrastructure? Why upset the local community? Why invite investors to invest if you do not know the true resource potential? Every single place on the earth has access to geothermal energy. To make the geothermal energy that is present available, to use it in the most efficient way. It is essential to understand the lithology of any given area that is larger than a standard working area, which is at this time 50 square kilometers. It is not just surface manifestations that indicate a possible geothermal system. There are hidden reservoirs. A drilling company has to be able to answer the following questions before drilling. How deep is the source of geothermal energy? Through which geological layers are we drilling into? Every investor needs to know detail. It's not happened overnight. Plasma drilling has been in development for over 15 years. Innovative data and processing methods. Satellites, drones, etc. are data collectors. The data needs to be processed. So we have to purchase data from satellites. With technology, we always use at least 9 satellites. We do not use Landsat free data. It's not good enough. We quantify manifestations on the Earth's surface, and we recognize patterns of density changes. And then we deliver the results with recommendations X, Y, and Z. There are something like 8 different independent processing methods, and we're not going to talk about all of these tonight. It will certainly confuse you, but it's important to recognize there are 8 independent methods done by different people in different countries looking for the same result. All the different methods may be used dependent on the project. Each and every method may be used to detect what natural resources and at times man-made objects are present in any given area beneath the surface. These are anomalies which are connected to the discovery of oil, gas, minerals, geothermal, fault structures, geothermal systems, etc. These anomalies then become high-profile targets for further exploration or confirmation by conventional tools such as seismic, if it can be used. Seismic is pretty blind in volcanic areas. So we're going to talk about one tool, which you've probably not ever heard of. It's called Proprietary Spectrometric Analysis, PSA. Its pixel analytics, its purpose is to detect physical rock density, resource deposits with depth and estimated volumes from passive seismic energy wave fronts. We call these small circular structures, onshore and offshore. Deep water is not a problem. And you will see why you are seeing ice cream cones here shortly. Pattern recognition. It is very important. We have to be able to recognize the density pattern that we're looking for. We call this pattern recognition. Every type of geomedium has its own acoustic density, which is recognizable from multi or hyperspectral satellite-derived data. What is proprietary spectrometric? It is a tool that recognizes patterns. It's a tool for pattern recognition. It inverts these patterns, focal points to a depth, where we create a 3D model as a result of the pattern. We're looking for geobodies. What are the circular patterns? They are remnants of the passive seismic effect. When you have a reservoir opening and collapsing due to lunar solar tides, you have these low power, low frequency or acoustic emissions that knock at the door of the surface for a long time, where they manifest in these circular patterns that cannot be seen by eye. Polar bear, our friendly polar bear here, they all have a density, they all have a wavelength. Its ears, its eyes, its nose, its body, it has a different wavelength. Close together, but they are recognizable. And PSA is based on pattern recognition of small circular patterns. The Earth has a regular breath effect due to changes of gravity, the lunar solar tidal effects, or tectonic activity that cause supple but regular compression and expansion of the Earth. The Earth breathes. And this causes ultra low frequency electromagnetic waves, or a natural acoustic emission of every geomedium's particle in the Earth's crust. And we can see, if you was to go on a website, Mr. Schumann, 2016, there's a nice paper there talking about it. Based on its generation and propagation, electromagnetic waves are divided into two: induced and natural electromagnetic waves. Again, you can see this on the websites. And PSA is a tool that is looking for fluid bodies. It also sees other natural results. It sees changes in physical rock density. The entire planet is covered onshore and offshore. These are real circular structures in Indonesia, over Lahendong. Indonesia is no different to the rest of the world in geology. Geology has no borders. This provides other clues which lead to inferences for conventional, unconventional reservoirs, volcanic, non-volcanic chambers. Fluid presence, faults, synclines, etc. are all detectable by density changes. Our ice cream cone. What happens is the small circular structures, they go down to the source of the resource at an angle of 72 degrees. The bigger the circle, the deeper the depth. The shallower the smaller the circle, the shallower the resource. And PSA is something that was invented 25 years ago. And basically 20 years ago, in 2002, Mr. Feisky registered a scientific discovery of small circular structures on the Earth's crust. And a paper has been written by him, and we're quite happy to share that. The formula of the scientific discovery is that natural emissions of the planet manifested from the unconsolidated sediments of the crust on a background of seismic waves which cover the whole Earth's surface. Natural seismic circular formations of small size from a few to hundreds of meters. 10 years of experiments. What is it? Drill, know what it is. Repeat, repeat, pattern recognition. Not done in one country, done in several countries. And it received the State Award, highest scientific recognition. Goes up, must come down. In other words, Houston emission comes up, it goes down. It's come from somewhere. What goes up must come down. PSA is based on natural electromagnetic waves, study poles and tides effects. Every particle of geomedium vibrates and emits low power energy emissions. Over millions of years, it's accumulated energy. It forms a large number of circular anomalies on the Earth's surface. It arrives at the Earth's surface from a source in the form of a 144-degree, both sides cone. Each circle brings spectral reflectance, information of its origin. It becomes a density change. Is it gold? Is it anticline? Is it water? Is it steam? This data can be extracted from satellite imagery only by using proprietary algorithms. PSA. Look, all of these circles, these changes are circles. They cannot be any other shape or image. Physically, it could be a different shape on the ground, but in the image, they can only be circles. In the form of the spectrum of amplitudes, scattered emissions are defined by the angle of the source and the different properties of unconformities within the geological medium. And the colored part is the bottom of a wave going upwards. It hits the anomaly identified by a small circular structure, projection upwards, ice cream cone. The wave penetrates as a semi-sphere upwards. And this is an example of one point. We look at thousands, millions of points in a 1,000 square, 500 square kilometer in the subsurface that we discovered through the small circular structures. We are hitting the resource from below the point, deep in the subsurface. All of these semispheres fill the whole cube. They interfere with each other. They overlap each other, but each density can be seen. So we are looking at a vast amount of pixels or focal points that are associated with gravity, density, and electric magnetic characteristics. And this is an image of a 3D semi-spherical wave which is going upwards. When they interfere, they create this image. We do not have three, we have thousands of them, which make up the extent of the geothermal reservoir or the extent of the fracture. And basically, the theory of it is satellite equals spectral data equals computer libraries from many, many years equals spectral criteria. And we see that these small circular patterns are forming on the Earth's surface. And the bottom layer in grey, you will recognise, is basically a gravity picture. But all of these circles, normally we'll have millions of the circles here. The bigger the circle, the deeper the depth. What you will see shortly is that the surface of the Earth is a direct connection to the subsurface. So the surface manifestation contains spectral reflection, information recorded in each pixel from the multispectral hidden satellite image. And we see a pixel with resource and standard deviation. And now we can see the ice cream cone going down, giving us a depth. And if we have a height of the manifestation on the surface, that height will be reflected in the subsurface. So what do we end up with? We end up with a density cube. Could be 100, could be 500, could be 10,000 square kilometers, or even 100,000. We are looking for the change of density. So you can put your mouse over there, select a color, or turn the layers off, and you will see the density for water, fracture, oil, rubies, etc. Different colors equals different morphology. We are looking here at acoustic density, which has been transformed from PSA density. So, seismic waves move in circular wavefronts, which act like carrier pigeons to bring the information to the surface related to density with respective gravity anomalies. They arrive at the surface as small circular structures over geological time. The diameter of the circle indicates the depth by going down at an angle 144 degrees, similar to our ice cream cone. The estimated bay depth and thickness can be calculated by radon transform, a well-known algorithm which came about in 1907 by Mr. Radon. And PSA allows us to estimate the geological resource, oil, gas, condensate, water, geothermal, etc. within the area of interest. And even our friendly bear likes ice cream. Ice cream cones, small circular structures. So we have a density pattern, we have a small circular structure, we have a point of origin coming up over geological time. Is it hot rock? Is it steam? Is it water? Is it a clay cap for the reservoir? Is it convection or conduction? Is it minerals, different minerals, all different densities? Is it solid, liquid or gas? Is it a fracture? Is it a man-made object? Is it our friendly polar bear? Is it our ice cream cone? They all have a different density. They are all recognizable. So the benefits of this technology, the method works at different scales, even works at the scale of 1 in 1,000. We will show you that shortly. And PSA let us estimate the geological resource in place within the area of interest. The maps will include contours of spectral anomalies, temperature gradient, inferred permeability, faults, etc., etc., in a 3D cube. Similarities. There are similarities between oil and gas and geothermal exploration. Thermal geochemical, structure depth, the real extent, fracturing, permeability, fluid and density contacts. Today, people are saying we need to learn from the oil and gas industry. At last, people are saying there are similarities. And there's talk about geoscientists becoming subsurface specialists and not specializing in one area, such as oil and gas. We are subsurface specialists. We specialize in all things beneath the surface. There are many similarities. We'll not run through all of this, but if we look at oil and gas and geothermal, we need fluid for both of them. We need a seal for a reservoir. We need fractures. We need to know the permeability. Will the water flow for a geothermal system? Hidden reservoirs, etc. Most of these can be identified by different density patterns. Different density is different lithology. Density gradient detected on the Earth's surface by multispectral data is connected to the subsurface. All are detectable. Geothermal exploration. The purpose is to cost-effectively minimize the risk before we start to drill. Prior to drilling, conventional greenfield exploration relies on the 3 Gs, geology, geochem, geophysics, and T, to determine the location of the reservoir. MT, invented 1950s, is used extensively. The main factor affecting resistivity is lithology. It's essential to understand a geothermal system before upsetting the locals, before constructing roads, drill pads, drilling, etc. Drilling to discover that the potential is not as expected is an expensive exercise. There was one company only 2 weeks ago, geothermal company, they was proud and said, we've donated a bridge, we've donated a road that we built to develop the geothermal potential in the area. When they drilled, there was no geothermal potential. So what was they going to do? Remove the bridge and remove the road? They had to leave it there. But they said, we donate it to the local campon. Okay, for geothermal, we need to have 4 main elements. The technology will detect these: water, cat rock, magma, etc., and steam, etc. It will be detected. The TERT delineates geothermal zones of activity based on geological phenomena that Mother Nature has provided. The key is to know what is beneath the cat rock. Is this enough information? No, it's not. So the quantification of spectral density to subsurface is important. Hidden potential, very important. Density contrasts. Steam to water pattern. Drilling location. Target depth, reservoir. Inferred permeability. Fluid presence. Reservoir extent equals potential electrical output. Subsurface lithology and other minerals present if someone wants to look for other minerals. In geothermal, there is a secondary business by extracting the minerals from the brine. Many of the requirements that technology can supply cannot be known by conventional exploration methods until drilling is carried out. So let's have a look. What are the end results? With the purpose to verify the potential of the prospects. So we're looking here at a 3D volume of thermal temperature gradient at various depths. And we can see the result of satellite data processing is a 3D voxel volume of thermal energy distribution. This was a working area, Lahendon, North Sulawesi, only 440 square kilometre. We come up, once you drill one, you come up with true temperature with slim hole drilling. But we covered an area of 875 square kilometre. We uncovered 5 to 7 hidden geothermal prospects which were not known. We're trying to persuade people your working area is 50 square kilometre is not big enough. You need to understand at least 400 square kilometre so that you can design your power station with the intention of expansion when the demand for electric happens in 10 years' time, for example. Know your potential before you design. Inferred permeability is important, can all be detected by satellite-derived data. There are many changes in the permeability that gives indications as well as fracturing, etc. True permeability is known with the slim well drilling results. Here we can see the 3D picture. This is a 3D model, and we can clearly see here fractures. We can see where dry wells have been drilled and a productive well has been drilled. We can see that this is a double reservoir. We can see the extent of the reservoir. We can see why it's a double reservoir, as there's a little break in the seal. This is Lahendon. You're getting a reservoir extent is known, which allows the calculation of the potential electrical output before even acquiring a license. Is this enough? Probably. But now let's look at something. This is for oil and gas. This has only just been completed, but we're trying to indicate this at a scale of 1 in 10,000. And we can clearly see upper reservoir, middle reservoir, and lower reservoirs. We can see permeability, we can see fractures, we can even see porosity. What are we seeing? We're seeing fault permeability, multiple layers, depth, thickness, extent, estimated volume because you know the extent of the reservoirs. We're seeing the full lithology. We're seeing down to 5,000 meters. This is on a scale of 1 in 5,000. This is the same area, and we're seeing the upper, middle, and lower reservoirs down at 4,500 meters, and we can see the recommended drilling location, XYZ, high potential hydrocarbon reservoir. Here we look at one that we've just completed in Nigeria, and we can see on the left a well which had been drilled. You can see that it missed the geobody. We can clearly see the low points, and we can clearly see the high points. In oil and gas, if you drill on a low point, you will drill a dry well. You need to be drilling on a high point. And we recommended to the client to move 300 meters north, and you will drill in the correct place. They missed the geobody. We can clearly see here for gold. This is just looking for gold. Coming from the density cube, we've turned off all the different layers and we're seeing parts per million, different colors for different gold, and even silver is in there as well. Okay. So in summary, basically speaking, you need to be in the right place with the right exploration tools. And if the resource is not there, you're not going to find something. And you need to understand the geothermal system before drilling. You need to drill a successful well. You need to drill less wells. You need to spend less money. The success rate should be 60 to 85% plus. Is it possible? Yes, it is. With technology, which was not available until the advent of satellites and powerful computers. And there is a revolution happening. Is Indonesia going to join? So we go from this blur, we try to come to this, a clear 3D picture of the subsurface, to see where others do not see. Terima kasih. Thank you. This is my email. If you would like to email me and ask any questions, we will always answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Pak George for the presentation. Very interesting. Sekarang lanjut ke sesi tanya jawab. Di sini belum ada yang menanyakan via chat. Jadi kalau misalnya ada yang mau langsung menanyakan mengenai presentasi yang disampaikan oleh George tadi, silakan bisa raise your hand. Nanti tim dan saya akan bisa lihat nanti. Pak George, ini ada there's a question from Emil Mahfuzi. How to know potential megawatt in a reservoir?
Well, basically speaking, to know the potential, you need to know the extent of the reservoir. If you know the extent, then you will have the potential electrical output. And with today's conventional methods, we use an MT. In actual fact, very often during a geothermal's life, power plant's life, you never know the full size of a reservoir unless you go and drill it all around outside. So by knowing the extent and the depth of the reservoir, you will know the potential electrical output.
Ya mungkin seperti itu jawabannya. Mungkin dari penanya adalah cukup jelas atau ada lagi yang pertanyaan lanjutannya. Jadi seperti yang mungkin tadi Pak George sampaikan, ya jadi kalau misalnya untuk mengetahui potensi dari suatu reservoir, ya kita juga harus mengetahui sebenarnya geometri dari seberapa dalam, seberapa luas seberapa besar si reservoir itu. Nah, itu yang paling utama yang harus di-identify dulu oleh kita kalau misalnya kita bermain di di bagaimana kita mengidentify potensi suatu reservoir dalam geothermal ya. Nah, kemudian ada pertanyaan lagi Pak George dari Muhammad Farid Hentihu. I heard the technology of injecting CO2 inside to get oil and gas. Is that harming the land or reservoir? Or what the function of injecting?
The function of injecting, certainly for oil and gas, is to make fractures and to make, basically try to free the oil which is having difficulty in flowing. And basically injection is because there's not enough, shall we say, the permeability is too tight, which will not allow it, any fluid to flow. So what are they, this is what they're doing with Shell, S-H-A-L-E, for oil and gas. They are fracking and injecting fluids, but they're also injecting fluids in mature oil fields like Mahakam and Wakam to try to bring the oil which is tight and cannot come to the surface. But, you know, with mature fields, if they knew the potential, the real potential through technology, your mature fields in Indonesia could be like new fields, as one very experienced Indonesian geoscientist has openly stated. We need to use technology to understand what we have.
Ya, oke. Ada lagi pertanyaan, Pak George, dari Lufiari Erlianto. What method that we must do inspect or maintain well that indicate reduce pressure and reduce flow of steam in mouth well?
That's a good question, because that is beyond what we do. I mean, technology is looking for the resource, trying to indicate all of the geothermal system. But until you drill with a slim well, you will not have an indication of pressure. So you need to drill, then you use your monitoring equipment, then you will distinguish what the pressure is. We can give indications of pressure. I mean, pressure is coming from the movement of the earth, the pressure that's being put by different fractures, etc. So we understand the geology of the area, we understand the fracturing, so you will understand some of the pressure, but actual pressure, like in permeability, inferred, like temperature gradient, can only come from drilling. But if you drill one well, you will start to understand all of these elements. But one well, you will know in 500 square kilometer or more what the temperature gradient, inferred permeability is throughout the whole area by drilling one well.
Oke, ini ada yang raise hand ya. Jadi untuk Pak Judo Prabowo, silakan langsung bisa ditanyakan.
Good evening, Mr. George.
Good evening.
Yeah. So actually, my background is in petroleum engineering, so it's a little bit similar, and at some point, it's quite different with the geothermal systems. So my question is, how's the conditions of the geothermal in Indonesia? I mean, like, at some point, we know that Indonesia is very potential, but at this point, there are some situations where the field of the geothermal in Indonesia is accumulated that able to make the equipment being corrosive. So what do you think about it? And then the second question is about the geothermal system in the development. So my question is, you say that at the previous presentation that there are a lot of technology that would able to be implemented in Indonesia. But in this case, I know that about the financial and then about the technology, we cannot able to apply all the technology. For example, as I know that there are technology of hydraulic fracturings, and yeah, it's quite difficult to be implemented in Indonesia. I read some paper that already mentioned that it's very developed in the United States, but in this case, why is still difficult to apply in Indonesia? That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
It's quite difficult to
Let me
apply
try
in
to do,
Indonesia.
yeah, let me deal with the first one quickly. In fact, with corrosion, etc., you really do not know what that is going to be until you've done geochemical analysis of the actual water. And that's not something that technology can do until you take samples of the water and then find out what the corrosive elements of that water will be and brine over the years. But if you know that, then you can put in stainless steel pipes or whatever, which will last a time, and not buy pipes, etc., cheaply, say from China or something, and then you have to renew them in 3 or 4 years. But the only way you can do that is purely by taking geochemical samples and analyzing them, and you design your power plant by knowing what the corrosive elements will be. Okay, the second point. I think the second point is very important, and you're quite correct. Some of the countries are accepting technology, and there is no disrespect. But if you remember what I said about the young people should be given the opportunity, and that the older people need to move aside, use their experience, but they do not know or understand technology. They don't want to understand it. And why is this? And the simple reason is, we have a mindset problem, and that's no disrespect, but it is, and I've been in Indonesia long enough to say that. We have self-interest problem, and when we say we drill less wells or we run less seismic lines, who doesn't want technology to be used? The people that do drilling, the people that run seismic lines. And at the end of the day, if we drill a dry well, does the company, a drilling company, care if it's a dry well or a producing well, geothermal, oil and gas? Does the seismic company care if they find oil or gas or minerals? They don't care because they're being paid to run seismic. Mm. So you need to understand what you have. And we're in an industry that has not changed for 60 odd years. Seismic came into the industry in the 1960s, but it started to be developed in late 1890s. And we had 2 world wars which delayed it, etc. Seismic is seismic. What does seismic measure? It measures structure. That's all it does. It doesn't tell you, is it oil? Is it gas? Is it water? Etc. Many, many things. So it's got limitations, but seismic, it can be used as a confirmation tool. And when we talk about cost, very recently, Pertamina has just carried out with SKK Migas a $270 million seismic 2D survey over, I think it was 20 basins. Took something like 9 months. Started last November, December. Have we heard today if they've found anything? No, we haven't. And in my view, if they'd have found something in the early stages, we would have heard about it. That is for sure. But that was $270 million to cover 30,000 square kilometre, sorry, line kilometre. The whole of Indonesia for oil and gas onshore, which is 2 million square kilometre, with technology could be explored on low resolution for $100 million. 40,000 square kilometre in the Natuna Sea, 3D seismic would cost you $1 billion. With technology, will cost you about $7 to $8 million. Then you use seismic to use confirmation and other methods before you drill. So your exploration cost is something like $50 million. You understand your area. What is it about? It's about mindsets and a willingness to accept technology. And the older people, sorry, I'm an older person, are not willing to accept it. But let's be fair, folks. Badan Geology are shortly to make a tender for satellite-derived data for exploration. They're also looking for geothermal. But we have been trying for 3 years now to change people's mindsets, and it's happening. We've said for a long, long time that investors do not want to invest in Indonesia. Why? Well, one of it is many of the companies are not so welcome because of nationalistic problems, but also the risk is too much. And at the end of the day, the first slide, more or less, we said, is Indonesia rich in resources? Everyone says yes, but where are they? How can Indonesia say we're rich in resources if you do not know where they are? You need technology to do it. It's nothing against seismic. It's nothing, but that's 60 years ago. We need to do something else. And every 50, 60, 70 years, something else comes new. But this technology has been brought about because somebody saw a need to do something differently. Satellites, powerful computers, the human has allowed this to happen. And we need to use it. This is that simple. You know? We need to do something differently. And the government has now woken up and said, we have to get the data. And it's true. The government has to get the data, get some data, invite the investors, and the investors' risk has been minimized. Investors don't want to come and lose money, and that's what's happening. And sorry, you know, every tender that goes out for oil and gas or geothermal, there is very little interest. Go to Guyana, they had a tender last year. They had something like 20, 25 companies participating in 6 blocks. You do that in Indonesia, you get 0. The risk is too high, but it's changing. It is changing. And if we do not do exploration, you young people will not be working because we're not exploring, we're not exploiting. Very simple. We have to do something. Okay.
Oke. Pertanyaan dari Mas Judo sudah terjawab ya, Mas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the answer.
Yeah. For the next question, dari Ramdhani Mismanu, ini raise hand. Dipersilakan. Mana?
Hello, check.
Ya. Silakan langsung, Mas.
Good afternoon, Mr. George, and that is
Good
very good
evening.
and very informative presentation of you. So on the last bit of your presentation, there is a term of high point and low point. And what is the idea of that we should drill on the high point and not the low point, especially in oil and gas? And what is it correlate to? Is it about depth or about pressure or about what? I think it is the question, sir. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
If you think of it, oil is a bit lighter than gas and even water. And what happens is that it moves to the top of, shall we say, the reservoir, which has a seal. If you was to drill on the low point, and the low point, you know, you could be 1 meter lower, 2 meters lower, etc. You will most likely drill a dry well, or you may drill into water. Why is this? Because the oil is above in the high point. And many times when they drill a dry well, we've done many examples where we've been asked to look at the reason, and they're just too low. They hit oil. We did one in Texas where they hit oil. They got 200 barrels of oil out and it filtered out, stopped. They just managed to get the bottom of it. They moved, I think, maybe 400 meters onto a high point. There the oil was. Now, the slide that I showed you with the NASA well, they in actual fact managed to get some gas out of there. The gas only came out for something like 1 hour or something and stopped. What happened is that they drilled into a fracture and they were so close to the geobody is that the gas escaped into the fracture. So they thought it was a producing well, but no, it filtered out. So we advised them to move. In fact, they moved something like 600 meters in the end onto the high point. Then they drilled perfectly well. But we had to go to a resolution of 1 in 1,000 to determine, but it was only a small area anyway. But that's the reason why, you know, the oil comes to the highest point in the reservoir. Right? Even when you're in the high point and you drill deep, 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 eventually you'll hit water and you'll get gas, and that's why you drill deeper for gas.
Oke, mungkin seperti itu jawaban answer from Mr. George. Tadi dari Pak Ramdhani Mismanu ya pertanyaannya. Untuk selanjutnya dari Pak Haji Sasongko, ini mau dibacakan atau raise hand juga. Mana ini Pak Haji Sasongko, mungkin dibacakan saja ya. Mr. George, there is a question from Pak Haji Sasongko. Good evening, sir. Regarding the PSA electromagnetic study, what kind of proprietary algorithm that is used to extract the data from the satellite image? The algorithm that you use for extract the data from the satellite.
Yeah, Mr. Radam, remember the slide? Radam? R-A-D-O-M? Radam transformation. but is the algorithm that is used to extract the information. But there are a couple more algorithms which allows the pattern recognition to happen. And as you're probably aware, there's over 4,000 different minerals. They all have a different density. And we need to be able to recognize that density. So basically, oil in Russia is oil in Indonesia. Gold in Papua is gold in Cambodia. Different density, it's the same. Water is water. But the algorithm basically is radon transformation. And that in actual fact is the same type of algorithm which is used in scanners in the hospital, etc. When they put you inside, the radon transformation algorithm, which allows extraction of different entities. Nothing secret about the algorithm there. It came about in 1907.
Oke. Ya, tadi jawabannya jadi untuk algoritmanya jadi idam ya tadi yang idam seperti yang sudah dijelaskan di dalam presentasi. Mungkin nanti kalau misalnya terlewat di bagian tertentu mungkin nanti ada materinya juga bisa di-share setelah melalui persetujuan dari pemateri. Oke, next dari Asri Bahtiar. That is good technology, Mr. George. Do you think this technology system can implement in oil and gas or geothermal industry in Indonesia right now?
We hope so. And what's basically happening, this technology has been used in Indonesia for 4 projects. In actual fact, one was for oil and gas in Lampung, and there's 1 billion barrels of oil waiting to be extracted, but it cannot be extracted because it's a sugar plantation and there is political problems, and the landowner is not allowing anybody to go on the land to confirm with seismic and to drill. It's been used in Sumbawa for gold, and the gold was there, but the person who owned the concession area, he fell out with the investor, so it never got completed. That was 4,000 square kilometer. It's also been carried out in Papua for gold, right in the middle of Papua, 100 square kilometer, gold was there, confirmed, but the block owner, his partner died, and he was a general. And in Lahendong, North Sulawesi, we did a trial for geothermal, and Pertamina Geothermal owns Lahendong, have done for the last 20 odd years. And the idea was to compare the known to the unknown. And we were the unknown. And it compared very nicely, to be truthful, but Pertamina, being Pertamina, didn't want to do anything at the time. But yes, can it be used? 100% for sure. Will it be used? Yes, it will. And I'm fairly certain that early next year, and I'm not really allowed to say this, but at least 2 areas of 10,000 square kilometer will be explored by satellite-derived data, and possibly 20 working areas for geothermal as well. So the acceptance is now there. But Indonesia has a problem. And the problem is that nobody wants to make a decision in case KPK or somebody comes and takes them to prison because they made the wrong decision. So we have a lot of people don't want to make a decision. There are some private companies are waiting for one to be done, and then they will follow, just like sheep. But you know, we've done over 200 odd projects in 20 different countries with a success rate for oil and gas of 79% plus that goes into production. And that's why we can say that the whole of Indonesia is explorable for all minerals. I think it will happen. Whether it will be our technology, I don't know. But technology will allow areas to be explored prior to getting a license, prior to upsetting the community. All of that is very important. And this is what the government is aiming to go for. Get the data, then invite the investor, then acquire the land that is required, not acquire the land and then explore and then find nothing. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of time. So I think people are now listening. I think it will happen. And if it does happen, it does mean a lot of jobs for young people. There's no doubt about it. And you will not be, shall we say, cutting down forests, etc., looking for something that may not be there. And you know, any given area, whether it's 100 square or 100,000 square, only 20% of that area will contain something. 80% will not. Therefore, you know, you need to explore in the cheapest possible way with the most best results that you can get. Then use conventional exploration to run limited seismic, shall we say, limited NT over the area of potential. Know what you have before you go there. So yes, it should be used. It will be used.
Okay, next question is dari Umu Yazid. Ini raise hand, saya bacakan aja. How you can see the potential of coal-bed methane in Indonesia? Can it be developed, or it could add a national gas reserve? About coal-bed methane in Indonesia, Pak George.
Yep, coal-bed methane several years ago was a very hot topic, and there was quite a few companies that was looking for the coal-bed methane. We ran into a lot of problems, and there's probably only one or two at the moment still interested. But one of the problems with coal-bed methane is to know where the sweet spot is, to know where to drill, to know where the fractures are. And that is something that technology can do. You can understand where the fracturing is. So there is potential for coal-bed methane, there is no doubt about it, but you need to be exploring differently. And while we're talking of that, not so long ago, last year, Energi was tasked by the government to look for minor fractures in Bangun and Jakarta. Because some of the minor fractures are more dangerous, some of the major fractures for earthquakes. And technology, if you go to a higher resolution, will allow minor fractures, because all fractures come from the major fractures. Now, they're like a spider web at the end of the day, and technology will allow these minor fractures to be found. So with coal bed methane, yes, you're trying to find a sweet spot. Can it be done? Yes, it can. But I'm not sure the interest is there at the moment. It should be good potential in Indonesia for coal bed methane.
Oke, ya itu mengenai tanggapan dari Pak George tentang CBM ya, coal bed methane in Indonesia. Next. Ini ada Pak Heri Pasca, raise hand. Bisa langsung bertanya.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. George.
Good evening.
Yeah, it's very interesting topic from you. So I'm in actually currently in Rokan Block. You have already known what's the corporate currently. Currently is the about the reservoir is about 30% of the capacity of the reservoir. So I don't know for the next operator, maybe Pertamina will allow that's the cell technology, some kind like in US cell oil or cell gas. I think I agree with you that the SKK Migas is the government body of Indonesia should have a good database for mapping the potentiality of the energy in Indonesia. So every investor is very have a not loss of money. So I just my question is do you have a data of the potential shale oil and shale gas in Indonesia? And the second one, for the geothermal, there is three technology of a generator technology: the dry steam, flash steam, and binary cycle. Which is technology is suitable with in current Indonesia geothermal? I think this is my question. Thank you very much, Mr. George.
Okay. Well, we'll deal with the second question first because that's quite easy. It's really binary, it's very suitable, and people are pushing for binary, which allows for lower temperature reservoirs, so something at 1,000 odd meters with binary is very good. And we know that Jacobs Consultant from New Zealand, they're pushing for binary, shallow geothermal, as well as slim well drilling. But you know, if you want to go deeper and hotter, which we should, binaries is also suitable for that as well. I think you'll find that a lot of binary will be used in the future here. It's certainly used a lot, and Ormat geothermal is quite very well into binary. Now into your second question, which is really, you say you're in a Rokan block and you talk about investors. And this also applies for the Mahakam as well. And there is a reluctance by Pertamina, to be truthful, to use exploration. And as you're in Pertamina yourself?
No, I'm in Chevron right now.
Okay, well, I can say it then. There is a reluctance by a certain person in Pertamina to use technology because in 2009, two companies carried out satellite surveys. One was in the Lapindo area. I'm not sure where the other area was. And both of them were very poor results. And both of those projects came to Pertamina shall we say, before KPK was as prevalent as it is at the moment. They were broad projects. So they didn't fail, they failed. So Pertamina is reluctant to use technology. Now we've made a proposal in actual fact for Mahakam. And let me tell you a quick story. In Kuwait, we did a survey which was for mature field, which is in sand dunes. And they ran into problems. So they asked us to look at the area. And what were they doing? They were basically doing grid drilling, which is not dissimilar to what they're doing in the Mahakam. They're drilling at certain intervals, then infilling, etc. And if you do not understand the highs and the lows, you're going to drill many dry wells. And that is exactly what was happening. This is what is happening. You need to understand the petroleum system, and many geologists that work in Mahakam and the Rockam and the Chevron, etc., they believe that they understand the petroleum system. But the answer is they do not, because we're still using the technology such as seismic. We're still using 1960s technology. So both the Rockam and the Mahakam, we believe, has potential to increase the production by knowing the potential. And you know, we've done many projects where the mature field has been since 1936 and still finding the potential. So the technology will allow the potential to be found. And I have to say this, one of the reasons investors are not interested so much in the Rockam and the Mahakam, and they were given to Pertamina basically, yeah, because nobody else wants to invest. There was one investor who said, why do we want to invest just to maintain? We need to increase production, not maintain and keep drilling just to maintain. We firmly believe that if technology was used, I mean, at this moment, you know, to explore Mahakam, which is, I think, 6,000 square kilometer or something like that, or the Rockam is 6,000 square kilometer, can't remember. It would only cost $4 million to do, right? Mahakam, I think it costs $700,000, right, on high resolution. What is the cost of one well? $10 million. Doesn't make sense. Right?
Yeah, you mean that the PSA technology can ensure that the Chevron or Pertamina get a correct well drill to be drilled, and in what place, what a potential place, so that we didn't never miss the.
If the potential is there, right?
Oh.
Now we don't know the potential, the full potential. We don't know. Nobody knows. And that's many mature blocks in Indonesia could be like new blocks, as one geoscientist said to me. We have the potential, and many of the blocks are not exploited enough because we just don't understand the petroleum system. We don't understand it. It's also the same, if you look at the geothermal example, the slide I showed you where we covered 800 square kilometer, we found 7 hidden reservoirs. Well, those hidden reservoirs have better potential than something that's leaking steam to the surface because it's leaking steam. So the full potential of the working area is not known. So if you understood the full potential, oil, gas, geothermal, and even minerals to be truthful, then I firmly believe Indonesia does not need to import oil and gas. Right? The potential is here, but you need to understand the petroleum system and the geothermal system. And I think that many of the bigger geothermal, they could be bigger if you wanted, if a demand for the electric is there. But you need to know what you have in the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. George. I think SKK Migas need to enhance their database for good potential to mapping to all of Indonesian potential. Thank you for your...
Yeah, well, quickly, that's now been sent to Padang Geology. And if we look at the new labour law, maybe SKK Migas will be no longer shortly. Yeah.
We will see, Pak George.
We will see, yeah.
Thank you, Pak George.
Yeah.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Heri Paska. And for the next question, dari Nadia Fauzia. Good evening, Pak. I have a question related to one of your slides that showed the plot of gold resource potential with the range ppm of AU grade. My question is, the PSA method can measure the grade of gold in situ resource? If it's yes, how it can measure the grade without the sampling process? Maybe related with your slide on your presentation.
Yeah. That slide on that presentation, in actual fact, was in Sumbawa. And this was a 4,000 square kilometer area. And maybe 20 years ago, we only did this last year, but 20 years ago, there was a 10 square kilometer area which had been drilled by a Canadian company. And they was able to determine what the parts per million was in that 10 square kilometer. But if we didn't have that information, we are able to come up with the inferred parts per million, same as temperature gradient, and inferred permeability. And once you drill one well, you then can come up to the actual, shall we say, temperature gradient, parts per million, permeability. And you can apply that throughout the whole area. So you're basically, shall we say, calibrating the system by the known. But if you don't have anything, well, you come to inferred, and then you are able to adjust it for one single well.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question is from Sari Amelia. How confident the technology of image interpretation through the satellite compared to seismic and geophysics?
Indicated is that there's been a lot of trial and error, and over 30 or 35 years, etc. And seismic in the North Sea last year, when they drilled, they had a 10% success rate. 3 years ago, Pertamina had a 7% success rate for the year. Right? We have a success rate that goes into production of 79%. Wells that go into production. For areas that we can look at areas of as large as you like, 10,000 square, 100,000. We have a success rate of about 96%, where we can say, is there a resource there? Yes or no. If there's no resource, don't go there. If there's something, go there. So what it's allowing is, it's allowing whole areas to be explored that could not be explored before. And as we've said, is that we're looking for something. Now, if we look at a 5,000 square kilometre area, are we going to look for oil, gas, geothermal and minerals? No, we're not. We're going to look for oil and gas. We're going to look for gold. We're going to look for geothermal. But if the resource is there, it will be found. There is no doubt about it. If it's not there, it's not there. It's very simple. So we have an exceptionally good success rate of correct prediction of no resources in that area. Don't go there. We've done many projects where we've done a due diligence for somebody who wants to buy a block, shall we say, and the owner, he said, oh, we've got this million of barrels of oil there. When we go there, it's not as much. So the confidence is very, very high. And as I said, we have a 90% plus agreement with seismic. Now, is seismic right or wrong? Or are we right or wrong? We don't know, right? But we have an exceptionally good agreement with seismic. We tie in very well with gravity, magnetics. But in gravity, the success rate for gravity is only 10–15%. You need to use seismic to go and run the whole area, or where you've probably got a reasonable gravity anomaly. So to cut the answer short, yeah, very confident, very confident. It's,
Oke. Ya, sekarang waktu sudah menunjukkan pukul 9 kurang 5 menit. Mungkin kita tutup sesi sesi tanya jawabnya. Mungkin jika nanti ada yang ingin ditanyakan atau ingin mendapat informasi lebih lanjut, teman-teman bisa menghubungi langsung Pak George melalui kontak yang tadi sudah disampaikan sebelumnya, ataupun nanti mungkin kalau misalnya ada yang tidak mencatat, nanti bisa ditanyakan kepada tim BE. Kita ini aja. Ya, Pak George, for the session, we close for the session question and answer. Maybe if there's any question, more question, the participant can contact you from to your contact that you give it before. Untuk ya, thank you for Mr. George Barber for the time and the presentation. This sharing session today, very interesting topic and technology. Very interesting discussion. I think there's a lot of new insight and information about the exploration of the natural resource from oil and gas, geothermal, mineral, gold, coal bed methane that we have discussed before. Terima kasih juga untuk teman-teman, rekan-rekan semua, Bapak Ibu yang sudah berpartisipasi, yang sudah aktif bertanya. Yang seperti saya sampaikan tadi, jika ada pertanyaan lanjutan, bisa dapat langsung mengontak kepada Pak George atau kepada tim dari BE. Oke, mungkin seperti sampai di sini
Mas
sesi
Riki,
nanti ya. Untuk selanjutnya kita serahkan ke ini nih tim dari BE untuk photo session atau yang lainnya. Silakan,
okay,
Mbak.
Mr. George, before we close our session, can you hear my voice?
Just
Okay, before we close our session, we would like to take a picture for our documentation. Teman-teman boleh buka cam-nya. Kita bisa foto bersama dengan Mr. George. Kita abadikan momen ini. Oke, saat ini ada 43 peserta, ada 2 pages. Jadi teman-teman silakan boleh tahan dulu posisinya karena kita nggak tahu ada di page mana. Baik, saya ambil ya. Oke, teman-teman berikan senyum terbaik untuk Indonesia. Oke, saya ambil ya. 1, 2, 3, smile. Oke, I copy the first. And then the second page. Okay, Mr. Jos from Bangun Energi would like to say thank you for your sharing session tonight. And then we would like to invite you for another sharing in the future maybe. And you can share another topic. Dan teman-teman, terima kasih telah bersama kami dalam sesi Bangun Energi. Silakan jika ingin terus update, teman-teman bisa mengikuti kami di Telegram Bangun Energi atau di WA Group Bangun Energi. Terakhir, kami dari tim Bangun Energi mengingatkan tetap dalam protokol COVID-19 untuk tetap menjaga kesehatan, tidak berkumpul. Kemudian, Mr. George, can you give us a closing statement for this session?
Yep. Basically speaking, Indonesia has an abundance of natural resources. It has abundance of human resources, and they should all be utilized. And Indonesia can easily be independent for its own energy. Not a problem.
Okay, so Mr. George has give us the closing statement. So Indonesia have a many source of energy. Okay, thank you, Mr. George. See you in the next session. Teman-teman, terima kasih. Mohon maaf dari tim Bangun Energi jika ada kekurangan. Kemudian dari tim juga saya memohon maaf jika ada kekurangan. Mudah-mudahan teman-teman tetap sukses dan kembali bergabung dengan kita di sesi-sesi selanjutnya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Good evening. Riki dan teman-teman saya tutup ya. Ini Mas Riki nih harusnya yang tutup. Mas Riki silakan tutup.